Once Itsuki was just an ordinary kid. But one day, everything changed when monsters suddenly attacked the Earth. Those monsters killed his parents right in front of him. He was all alone in this world, so he promised himself he'd kill every monster he found. 10 years later, the day he could wake up his power and become a hunter finally came. He walked onto the stage while the strongest hunters in the world watched. Then he rested his hand on the stone that was waking up. But he had no idea that destiny had something completely different in store for him. He woke up a strange power called the Limit Breaker, a strength that no one had ever known before. On top of that, he found out his level was stuck at 0, so he would never grow stronger. Now the big question is, how will our hero pay back the monsters for killing his parents? The tale starts with the memory of that day when countless creepy black monuments fell from the sky, one after another, casting dark shadows over the city as strange glowing orbs and crackling energy swirled around them during their descent. Right after that, barriers went up as a huge purple beam shot from the city center, twisting the sky into a vortex that made people on the street stop and stare at the glowing tower rising before them. Disaster beasts smashed through the barriers and came into our world, bringing with them a giant dark figure named Ringa, the demon of destruction, who stood tall with purple energy swirling behind him. In no time at all, the streets were swarmed by so many scary monsters. Fierce armored beasts, flying monsters, and giant clawed creatures charged forward as people screamed and scrambled away. Disaster hit right away when a giant armored monster swung its arm, knocked a man down, and he screamed for everyone to run. Close by, his little one cried out and reached for him, calling for their dad as their mom ran away while chaos broke out all around them. As beasts came charging from every side, a winged monster dove from the sky, a burrowing creature burst up from the dirt, and blue-flamed monsters ran at the fleeing people, causing bodies to pile up on the road as panic swallowed the whole area. The armored beast charged forward, blue fire exploding around it, while its jaws gaped wide in a roar and glowing blue eyes flashed in the dark. A swirling blue fire blast shot out toward a woman sprinting away while clutching a child to her chest as the monsters closed in and the flames spread across the road. Blue flames grabbed the woman and pushed her child away as he lay weak on the ground, while she trembled and kept saying, "It's Suki, run," even as the little boy looked at her with teary eyes and begged for his mom. Just then, a shout rang out calling for Suki, and a boy felt a cold drop of sweat race down his face as the sound echoed. In the next moment, the scene snapped back to the present, where a pink-haired girl turned to him and asked what was wrong, noting that he seemed lost in thought, so he quietly answered that nothing was the matter while standing among the lined-up students. Hearing that, she squinted, leaned closer, and asked him again if he was telling the truth. Then, with tears streaming down one eye, the boy, who was still at Suki from that day, stood frozen. Before he could reply, another student suddenly slung an arm around him and cheered, noting that since it's usually nap time, the teacher must be tired, though today there's a big school assembly, and Itsuki pointed to the stage to show how weirdly the teacher is dressed. On stage, the teacher in a strange armored helmet told us how some humans gained the power to fight back after the disaster beasts arrived, earning them the name Awakened. The armored man explained that 10 years ago, the biggest monster attack at the Blue River's northern shore woke up warriors from across the world who fought back in what became the River Crossing War. Itsuki's classmate leaned forward, pointed at a man on the stage, and explained that he was Ninto, the boss of the northern continent, then asked how Itsuki could be from the north and not know him. Itsuki stared quietly at Izumi Ninto, noting that the name felt familiar even though the real person on stage was nothing like the hunched, bearded old man he'd once imagined in his head. Itsuki's friend spoke with wide eyes, claiming this man was the most powerful awakened one, so strong that even Teiwane, the light of humanity, was just his student. The armored man stepped back into view and explained that new research revealed even ordinary people could gain power if they touched a monument before awakening. Izumi Ninto stood on the stage, his long cloak swirling like black fire as he told the students he had come to help them awaken and fight the disaster beasts. As soon as he spoke, glowing blue blades sliced through the stage and tore the monument apart, sending light and debris flying while a guard in sunglasses watched from the side. Seeing this, the students erupted in loud excitement as one shouted in shock at the monument rising from the ground, wondering if it was magic, while another yelled that now wasn't the time to be surprised, and they all clenched their fists, feeling like they were in a dream and begging to wake up. Among the crowd, Itsuki's friend squeezed his arm with pure excitement and whispered that they finally had a chance to awaken, his eyes gleaming as he spoke the word finally. He began heading toward the stage, But his friend yanked him back while shouting for him not to be left behind, and a pink-haired girl called out to tell him to get back in line. But Itsuki walked right past her, his eyes flashing red as a streak of light shot through the air, leaving the girl staring in stunned shock. The camera zoomed in on Itsuki as his red eyes glowed with excitement, declaring that the day had finally arrived. On stage, a student reached out to touch the big black monument, but it didn't move, so a guard quickly shouted that it wasn't working and told the next person to step up. As the students watched, they grew nervous, with one boy pointing out that even the previous student had broken the school's record in his first year before failing to awaken. So there was no hope for him, but the girl beside him insisted that athletic skill had nothing to do with it and warned them not to give up so soon. More students reached out to touch the monument one after another while the guard repeated his words. But as the line moved forward, the anxious crowd grew tighter until a white-haired boy nervously pointed out that no one had woken up yet, causing others to mutter and worry, while a short-haired girl claimed it would be easy even as her trembling friend feared their whole school might disappear. The guard bellowed the next name across the room. Nearby, a group of students whispered their fears, with one girl begging that he not wake up and another warning that his powers would only make his bullying much worse, until a boy suddenly pointed at the monument and shouted that something was happening. Suddenly, lightning exploded from the monument, throwing Oishi Hikaru into the air as blue electricity crackled around him, and everyone stopped to watch. A glowing blue screen flickered to life beside him, revealing his stats and sparking a grin of excitement as he realized that both Izumi Ninto and the woman watching from the monument would finally recognize him. As Oishi Hikaru raised his arms in victory while confetti sparkled around his proud grin, the school courtyard fell quiet, leaving him to wonder if the old man Ninto had anything to say to him, the first student to awaken. Before he could brag anymore, a hand grabbed his shoulder from behind, and when he spun around in shock, he saw something skiing right past him. Oishi Hikaru spun around to glare at Itsuki, shouting that his hands were dirty and daring him to die. The students huddled together in hushed whispers as a girl pointed out that the boy had cut in line, only for another to identify him as Tenma Itsuki from Class 5, before someone else warned that once Oishi picked a target, it was all over. From above, the blue-haired woman and Commander Ninto watched silently as she narrowed her eyes to feel the students' intense emotions pouring out. Itsui stood before the giant stone, pressing his hand against it while his eyes burned red as he forced the dark memories of the beast disaster back into his heart. Commander Ninto stared ahead like he could feel something amazing coming. On the awakening platform, a huge blue figure rose behind Itsuki, towering over him with a glowing sword and immense power, while Itsuki stood calm beneath it. As blue light flooded the air, the monument burst with power and a sharp, glowing pillar rose above Itsuki, wrapped in swirling streams of light. The light spread out and covered the whole school like a giant glowing lotus blooming overhead, with the crowd watching in awe. The students looked up, speechless, as one boy noted the pillar of light stretched hundreds of meters into the sky, while another declared it far more spectacular than Oishi's awakening. Two of Itsuki's classmates cheered with excitement, smiling and shouting that this was exactly what they'd hoped to see. The blue-haired officer stared up at the sky in shock as she explained that this rare sight meant the legendary Order Breaker had finally arrived, leaving her hand over her mouth in disbelief, while even Commander Ninto grinned with excitement at the student's potential. Seeing that, Oishi's face twisted in frustration as he glared up at the blinding light. Itsuki opened his eyes in confusion, surrounded by shimmering blue energy, wondering where he was and if he had truly awakened. He looked around and saw himself sitting cross-legged in the middle of a huge, glowing lotus made of light, surrounded by countless petals floating in a quiet, otherworldly place. Suddenly, a blue screen popped up in front of him, and Itsuki stared in shock as it revealed that he was a level 0 human named Order Nirvana, with a fixed level and a special grade gift that healed all wounds and removed every bad effect. Suddenly, a new blue window popped up, revealing that his missus had reached his rank and could analyze enemy attacks to learn counter skills, while another screen displayed Itsuki's shocking stats: 0 attack, 0 agility, 0 defense, 0 magic, and a grand total of 0. Itsuki turned ashen before two blue windows popped up, announcing that he had instantly earned his new Z-rank skill over Mimesis and activated a special gift called Nirvana that boosted every single one of his stats by 200. Another screen showed the changes, revealing that attack, agility, and defense all jumped from 0 up to 200. As soon as he saw this, Itsuki's face lit up with excitement, and he realized that even without leveling up like everyone else, he could still get stronger because every new skill he gained would make Nirvana raise his stats. He tightened his fist, smiled with surety, admitted he couldn't judge this power's exact strength, but knew he had awakened, and vowed with steely eyes to wipe out the disaster beasts. A huge flash of blue light erupted from the monument, making students cover their faces and cry out because it was so bright that some even grabbed their eyes in pain. Inside the monument's dazzling light, Itsuki stood tall, while lightning and energy spun wildly around him in a mighty show. Oishi stared at the scene, shaking with shock and shouting that what he saw could never be real. The blue-haired officer gasped and covered her mouth in shock, staring at the glowing screen with disbelief over the rookie's amazing stats. Even Commander Ninto couldn't quite believe it, but he admitted that Itsuki was clearly the strongest new awakened to ever exist. Outside, Itsuki stepped into the glow with blue energy petals swirling around him as a shining silhouette, while Commander Ninto, the strongest, was left with only one word to say. A system window popped up showing Tenma Itsuki's public info. He was a level 0 fixed order breaker with a special gift, and his hidden skills hid behind stats of 200 in attack, agility, defense, and magic for a total of 800. As the crowd of students and teachers went wild with cheers, someone shouted that 10 MMA stats had shot up all at once, while another cried out in disbelief that their school would ever have someone so amazing, and an older teacher yelled that this feat would go down in school history. While the crowd cheered, Oishi shook with anger as lightning surrounded him and his eyes turned red, grinding his teeth and glaring at Itsuki in fury because the tears he thought were his had been stolen. Oishi's fury erupted like lightning, making him scream that a loser like Itsuki should stay one, while the students scrambled back in shock as sparks crackled all around them. Electricity surged through the hall as Oishi lunged forward, his eyes wide with madness, shouting that he would take out Itsuki using his brand new power. From the top of the monument, Itsuki stood calm, while lightning flashed all around the crowd below. As Itsuki squeezed his fist tight, a blue window popped up to announce the crank skill, Silver Serpent, and while Mimus' powers flared to life, his eyes sharpened as his blue panels raced through the analysis, jumping from 27% to 57%, and then 69% in a flash of lightning crackling around him. Itsuki leaped with the speed of lightning, cracking the floor as the electric bolt struck. The students gasped in shock as they realized something was wrong, with one girl asking where Itsuki had gone, another claiming they saw a flash of electricity before he vanished, and Oishi looking around in confusion, trying to figure out where he had disappeared to. A glowing blue window reached 88% as Itsuki stepped out like a shadow wrapped in lightning, his eyes blazing with a bright beam that froze Oishi in terror while sweat poured down his face as he realized the danger was right behind him, leaving him panicked and unable to move. Itsuki gripped Oishi's shoulder and told him to be grateful for being human, because if he were a monster, Itsuki would have killed him 100 times over, and Oishi shook with such terror that his whole body felt frozen. In a flash, Itsuki stepped forward just as Oishi hit the ground, leaving a shocked student to wonder how he appeared behind them while others nervously joked about fear before a new floating panel showed Itsuki's power jumping from 94% to 99% in a swirl of blue energy, prompting him to muse that the quick analysis was probably because he was using only a C-rank skill. The screen went pitch black and flashed once before confirming the analysis was complete. Lightning crackled around him as a new message popped up saying, "Crank skill Thunderbreaker acquired," leaving Itsuki glowing in the center of the blue sparks with power wrapping around him like living lightning. As the light started to glow again, the students watched with nervous eyes, while one boy stared in shock and shouted that it was happening once more, and another kid with sunglasses grinned and pushed them up, saying it was a good thing he had brought them. Inside the bright, glowing room, Itsuki sat quietly with a thoughtful look, knowing that every time his study ended, he would be pulled back here to see the system tell him he had mastered a new power, Thunderbreaker, after finishing his work on the Silver Serpent. A new window popped up, revealing that the Thunderbreaker skill lets him soak up lightning strikes, turning them into stored power that boosts his speed by half when released, while also permanently increasing his agility by 5% every time he takes a C-rank hit. Outside, the students covered their eyes as a huge flash of blue light erupted from Itsuki's body, wrapping around him in dancing arcs while he stood in the center of the steps as the crackling electricity forced everyone to step back and shield their faces. Someone screamed that Itsuki was now wrapped in lightning from head to toe. Another student panicked, claiming the lightning was even brighter than Oishi's, and Oishi, who had attacked him earlier, stared with trembling eyes, unable to believe how Itsuki had learned such a power. As Itsuki's body blazed with light, the system flashed across his vision, showing his stats climbing from 200 to 210 and his total strength soaring from 800 to 840. Suddenly, the students looked up at the sky in confusion, wondering why the sun vanished and rain began to fall right before someone shouted that something else was dropping from above. A coffin-shaped thing wrapped in lightning dropped from the stormy clouds, and the rain poured down harder as it crashed onto the school grounds. A woman with blue hair and glasses gasped, shouting that the strange object was a monument and wondering why it had appeared right there, while Commander Ninto immediately canceled the assembly and ordered everyone to flee the school, knowing instantly that he was the target. The woman glanced at Commander Ninto and urged him to flee, admitting that fighting wasn't their strong suit. Commander Ninto shook his head, warning that running would cause chaos, and gestured for her to look at the boy standing ahead, who seemed far calmer than either of them. Just as lightning flashed around the falling object, the students scattered in panic, but Itsuki stood alone in the field, glowing with a soft blue light. A blue-haired woman yelled at him from behind, asking why he wasn't running. A huge dark pillar crashed down, shaking the ground and sending debris flying while rain poured hard, causing nearby students to panic as one boy shouted about the disaster beast attacking and begged Itsuki to run. But Itsuki stood his ground with glowing red eyes and coldly declared he would kill every single one of them. His friends stared at him in shock, one screaming that he had to run or die, while another insisted that since he had just awakened, he was too weak to fight the disaster beasts, so they begged him to let the others handle it. But Itsuki just shook his head and told them to trust him, while the pink-haired girl paused with worry etched across her face. Finally, she yelled that if he died, he couldn't blame them, then snatched the other guy's clothes and dragged him along while the glasses-wearing boy asked if it was safe to let him go, reminding her that the enemy was a disaster beast and a walking weapon of mass murder. As the pair sprinted away, Itsuki grinned like a man mad with power, his eyes burning bright red through the falling rain. He whispered that his first target as an awakened being was the man who killed his parents, Lucky, and lightning wrapped around him as he took a step forward. A glowing panel lit up beside him to show the skeleton soldier stats. Level 8, Gift Grade 2, with a powerful defense boost that only worked if it could block attacks, and a blue flame burning on its bones while Itsuki crackled with lightning, his red eyes glowing as he wondered if he was ready to use his new skill. In the next instant, he surged forward, crackling with electricity, blue lightning trailing him as he raced across the field to crash into the flaming skeleton beast while sparks danced through the rain. The skeletal monster swung its arms to punch, but Itsuki dodged, then swung his electrified fist with all his might while shouting that he would never let anyone else die. His punch hit the creature's chest, sending a wild burst of energy flying. The blast hurled the giant monster across the field and into the school, shaking the ground as rubble flew everywhere. The students watching from afar stood in shock, realizing the rookie's power was so overwhelming that running was no longer needed, as the blue-haired inspector stared at the ruined wall, stunned that someone who had just awakened could send a level 8 beast flying with a single hit. As heavy rain poured down, Commander Ninto watched from afar, admiring how Itsuki's raw speed and power far surpassed any other level 0. Yet he remained certain that defeating a skeleton soldier was still impossible because of its two nasty tricks: an unnatural shield that made it nearly unbreakable, and a deadly flame called bonefire that instantly turned anything it touched into ash. Blue flames burst across the field like a rushing wave heading straight for Itsuki, making the students gasp as the fire surged forward. As Itsuki's friends screamed in terror, they shouted out Itsuki's name. Oishi marched forward with a wild grin, shouting that the foolish fool who didn't know his place would burn right down to ash. As glowing screens popped up before Itsuki, a system warning told him the enemy was wielding bonefire, while his analysis sped up from 1% to full speed. As blue fire wrapped around him and new screens popped up showing 25%, Itsuki stood strong in the burning bonefire, watching how his enemy's attacks made his analysis speed go faster. The blue-haired instructor stared in shock, warning that even a level 10 awakened would be wiped out if hit directly. Blue flames kept eating away at the arena, while Itsuki stood in the middle with half his body burned away like a glowing skeleton, as the blue-haired instructor's voice echoed through the heat to say it would be a tragedy for a genius to be killed by a beast before he could grow. With system windows floating nearby, showing 77% and 81%, while Itsuki looked at his burning form and muttered that this was what burning felt like, and that it must have hurt. As the fire danced around him, he watched his mother's face char away and felt a crushing pain. But in her final moments, she forced a smile to keep Itsuki from being scared. Commander Ninto looked out with a sharp stare, wondering if Itsuki was still holding back his full strength. As the blue fire danced wildly and the progress bar crept upward, Itsuki's bony fingers gripped tighter, ready to declare the enemy defeated the moment the analysis was done. The screen lit up as the analysis finished its work. Outside the flames, students whispered in fear, doubting if their new awakened hero could deliver a miracle. But when one of them suddenly pointed and shouted that the blue lotus had reappeared, they all realized it might be time to hope again. Blue light swirled around Suki as he stood inside the burning aura, wondering what skill he would gain this time, while the fading flames slowly revealed his burned and cracked body beneath the glowing energy. Suddenly, a system window popped up announcing that the bonfire analysis was done and a new skill called Black Wall had been unlocked, followed by more windows explaining that this power could freeze the body to block fire attacks and boost defense when doing so. Another notification popped up announcing that Black Wall Level 2 had been taken over, boosting every single one of his stats by 20, wiping away all negative effects and healing every last scratch. A fresh window popped up to reveal his new stats, showing that attack, agility, defense, and magic had all jumped from 210 to 230, bumping his total strength up to 820. Itsuki stared at the glowing screen with calm eyes, recalling how his strongest attack earlier failed to crack the skeleton soldier's tough defense. But now he felt this new power would finally let him break through. Suddenly, blue lotus petals spread out around him, opening up like a giant glowing flower. Itsuki stood right in the middle while glowing power wrapped all around his body. The students gasped in shock, one crying out with relief that it's alive, while others cheered loudly, calling the full recovery nothing short of a miracle. The blue-haired instructor stared in disbelief, wondering if Itsuki possessed a self-healing power since she had seen him use lightning just moments before, while Commander Ninto stood equally stunned, realizing that even among the mysterious order breakers, Itsuki seemed like something entirely different. Meanwhile, Itsuki stood in the center of glowing lotus petals, fully healed with not a scratch left, blue fragments swirling around him as he stared down at his perfect body, whispering in awe that his recovery was complete and wondering just how far his healing could go, even if his limbs were gone or his mind destroyed. Suddenly, the skeleton soldier roared as its armor burned with blue fire, and the monster charged forward in a violent surge of flames. As Itsuki turned with a calm smile, black spikes grew over his skin to face the blue flames rushing toward him. His whole body was swallowed by the flames, yet he stood still inside them until he suddenly reappeared through the fire. Heavy rows of black spikes wrapped around his whole body, making his red eyes shine coldly through the cracked ice armor. Itsuki sliced through the sky before slamming down in a burst of blue fire, his electric armor crackling as he prepared for the next hit. The giant skeleton swung its weapon, but Itsuki vanished from sight and reappeared behind it in an instant, moving faster than anyone could track. Itsuki thrust his arm up, and it transformed into a huge black spike sword crackling with lightning. With a flash of speed and a single slash, Itsuki split the skeletal beast in two using his sword. The students watching from a distance were left speechless as one shouted that Itsuki vanished in an instant to appear behind the monster, while another claimed that only a fully awakened person could move that fast. Oishi was just as shocked as Itsuki, admitting she couldn't even track his moves, and the blue-haired instructor couldn't believe a guy like him was a rookie. As the dust cleared, Itsuki stood alone watching the black spikes vanish from his skin. Then he kicked the skeleton beast's head to shatter it, and realized with shock that this divine gift could both armor his body and mold that armor into any weapon he needed. Just as the scene unfolded, a voice cut through the air, loudly calling out his name. Itsuki spun around in surprise when his friend tackled him in a tight, relieved hug, cheering that he'd finally won after worrying so much, and only then did Itsuki pause to ask about Sia. His friend pulled back and admitted that Sia had been watching earlier with a face full of tears, but now she had vanished. Itsuki stared at the crowd, confused that she wasn't there, scanning the students in the distance while quietly wondering if she was mad at him. Not far away, the blue-haired instructor Choa watched the chaos and spoke seriously, wondering how a boy could beat a skeleton soldier that even a level 10 awakened would have trouble with, until Commander Ninto called her over to help clean up and tell her to take his message to the principal. He was taking Itsuki with him. While Itsuki's friend patted his hand and said Seiya wouldn't be mad after a win, guessing she was just afraid of falling behind, Itsuki looked down and quietly hoped that was true. Suddenly, a voice called out to see if he was Tenma Itsuki. Itsuki turned to see Commander Ninto, a tall figure in a long cape, standing silently before him. As people watched from afar and whispered among themselves, they noticed Yumi Ninto talking straight to Itsuki, sparking debates about whether he'd take him on as a student despite the fact that he'd only ever accepted Teiwajin, humanity's strongest, before. Itsuki's friend turned away with a nervous look and promised to go find Sai. Commander Ninto looked down at Itsuki and spoke in a calm voice, telling him that he was truly special. Itsuki stared at Commander Ninto and whispered the words back, wondering what he meant by calling him special. Commander Ninto watched Itsuki as dark power swirled around him, noting the anger and hate in his heart, while Itsuki stood in the shadows with a bright light gleaming from his eyes. Commander Ninto stepped up and asked why that anger existed. Itsuki finally spoke, revealing that 10 years ago, his parents were taken by deadly monsters just to keep him safe. A memory from his childhood flashed before him, showing his younger self crying helplessly as danger closed in. He recalled how he nearly died until a powerful figure suddenly appeared to save him, striking the beast right in front of the scared Itsuki. Itsuki told Commander Ninto that he watched his mother burn into glowing blue ash. Yet even as her face turned to bone, she smiled and told him to walk the rest of the path alone. Young Itsuki stared at her with shaking eyes, too confused to speak, until his voice broke as he screamed for his mother. He felt a burning rage inside him as he looked at the beast, remembering how these creatures had taken his mom and dad, and he cried out in denial as tears streamed down his face. In front of him, a giant monster erupted from the dark, wreathed in furious purple fire, casting a terrifying shadow over Itsuki as he finally understood that this beast was the source of all the evil. Shaking with fury, Itsuki glared upward, his eyes blazing red as hatred filled his heart, and on that day, he vowed to kill that demon and every last creature of its kind. Right now, Itsuki ground his teeth hard and wiped a tear from his cheek while screaming that he would kill every single one of them. Commander Ninto stared at him and noted that even though a burning hatred filled Itsuki's heart, he still found himself crying. With a calm hand to his face, Itsuki explained that since his mother died, his left eye stopped crying while his right one tears up all on its own, keeping his hate for the disaster beast forever fresh. Commander Ninto asked if Itsuki would be a student, promising to get him into the Salvation League, so he could gain the power needed to revenge against the disaster beasts, but if Itsuki just quietly repeated the words and asked what the Salvation League actually was. Commander Ninto explained that to fight the disaster beast better, the 5 continents had gathered the world's strongest awakened people into an official group called the Saviors. He kept explaining that Saviors got special training, super strong weapons, and huge paychecks, so much that even new trainees earned 10,000 gold a month, which Itsuki realized was enough to buy a whole car. Commander Ninto warned that such generous treatment came with a price. Saviors were expected to constantly fight disaster beasts on the front lines to keep people safe. With a calm look on his face, shirtless and unbothered by money or fancy gear, Itsuki said that what truly mattered to him was something else entirely. His eyes burned with determination, his fist tightened, and he declared that facing disaster beasts on the front lines was what truly mattered, vowing to become a savior just like them. Commander Ninto explained that the Salvation League held a huge February exam with over 10,000 people competing, where only the top 100 could become saviors, so Itsuki immediately asked about the highest score ever recorded. Commander Ninto shook his head at Itsuki, saying the map they had wasn't much help for figuring things out. He calmly told us that Taewajin set the record at 115,000 points 11 years ago, and to pass you only need 30% of that, but scoring 50% is what it takes to take first place. Itsuki quietly remembered the name Taewajin, the legendary strongest hero called the Light of Humanity that Rikaru had talked about. Commander Ninto told Itsuki that Jin was special, and looking up to her would only bring despair. Yet Itsuki should still believe he could one day stand right beside her. Standing bare-chested on the training ground with a steady look in his eyes, Itsuki vowed to beat Taewajin. Hearing those words, Commander Ninto's eyes went wide inside his helmet. Surprised, he recalled a past moment with Taewajin, who reminded him that while his popularity inspired the next generation to follow, they could never win the war against disaster beasts on their own. For just as a new sunrise ends the day, someone would one day surpass him, a future he eagerly awaited. Seeing Suki's determination, Commander Ninto felt that the sunrise Taewa had been waiting for had finally arrived. A few hours later, Commander Ninto brought Itsuki to a new place where he pointed out a giant glowing dome rising in the distance, and Itsuki quietly asked what it was. Commander Ninto said those old ruins were actually secret doorways that let humans travel into the world of monster beasts. He warned that killing the beasts while leaving the monuments alone would just let new ones take their place. He pointed to the huge dome and explained that it was built to hold monuments that couldn't be destroyed, where awakened people would sometimes go in to sweep away the disaster beasts that popped out, keeping things under control and getting them practice at the same time. Itsuki gazed at the building and asked if it was a training center, and Commander Ninto stood beside him to confirm it was called a stage, warning that the wild beasts inside were too strong and dangerous to control. Commander Ninto warned Itsuki that the monsters in this stage were the strongest of all the rookie levels, so dangerous that people called it the rookie graveyard because so many beginners died there. He told Itsuki that back when Jin was just a rookie, he had rushed through that deadly stage in just 3 minutes and 14 seconds. Commander Ninto looked at Itsuki and warned that if he really wanted to beat Jin, he had only 3 minutes before his time was up. As Itsuki marched toward the massive facility, Commander Ninto told him that if he cleared the stage in just 3 minutes, he would become his student. And hearing this, Itsuki's eyes sharpened with a fierce desire to surpass Jin and earn that spot. As soon as people in the lobby spotted the familiar figure, they turned their heads until someone shouted that Mr. Izumi had arrived, only for another to notice Suki walking beside him and ask if he was the famous rookie, sparking whispers that a rookie could only walk next to him if he was as powerful as an awakened on Taewajin's level, leaving Itsuki looking around quietly and wondering if this person was really that well known. Thinking about it, he walked up to the stage and saw the display showed the monster was level 10, just 2 levels higher than the skeleton he had fought, and he wondered just how powerful that really was. What shocked him most was that despite a crowd watching, no one dared to step onto the stage, as they whispered that the rookie was far too bold to be alone and probably had a powerful master hiding nearby, while others joked he was just showing off his pretty face to flirt with the receptionist. At the counter, the receptionist smiled politely and asked if he was ready to step onto the stage and how many opponents he expected, to which he calmly replied that he would face them alone, causing the area to go silent as she stared at him across the counter. Suddenly, she leaned forward, yelled angrily, and told him to stop making jokes while warning that even if the stage was fake, people inside could still get hurt or die. But as she explained this to a confused Itsuki, the crowd behind them started laughing and joking that he was just there to hit on her, prompting him to calmly tell the receptionist he had no interest in her and only wanted to challenge the stage, causing her to suggest he go home since she wouldn't give him her number anyway, only for his expression to darken and his focus to shift entirely to entering the stage without caring about her offer at all. After hearing that, the receptionist hesitantly agreed and warned him not to blame her if he died, holding out a metal bracelet while looking terrified and shaken, only for Itsuki to mutter that she should have just granted permission right away instead of making him repeat himself. While the crowd behind them whispered that Itsuki was an idiot for challenging a deadly level 10 stage as a level 0 rookie. Some even doubted he'd last a minute. Others secretly hoped his unique special grade gift might save him, but they all agreed that level was everything compared to gifts, and while Itsuki stood bravely at the gate, checking his information bracelet to prove he could get in, the skeptics remained convinced his choice was nothing but suicide. A glowing screen flickered above his hand, showing that the awakened Tenma had let him in and approved Itsuki. Itsuki stretched his hands forward, took a deep breath, and reminded himself that the promise was only 3 minutes away before declaring it time to begin. A bright digital timer popped up, glowing with green numbers that read 01. The moment the gate swung open, Itsuki exploded forward, his body wreathed in red power as he sprinted ahead with eyes blazing. He scanned the huge room, realizing it was far bigger than he thought, then sprinted across the grassy field toward the tall black tower, telling himself this was his first time stepping onto a stage, even if it was fake, just as a creature suddenly rushed in and he shouted that it was coming. A wooden monster from the Kodama tribe leaped at him, and a blue window popped up to reveal its stats. Kodama number 1307, level 4, with no special gifts, an attack of 49, agility of 48, defense of 53, magic of 24, and a total score of 174. As the danger loomed, black spikes erupted on Itsuki's hand, and he drove his blade down with a fierce burst of energy that sliced cleanly through the target. Itsuki stood calm, holding his giant black spike axe, smiled, and joked that an axe is the perfect tool for trees before asking the other monsters how it felt to watch their friend get cut in half. Then watched as dozens of Kodama creatures rushed him while he stood tall and called them rotten trees. Outside, Choa asked her father, Commander Ninto, why he sent the new recruit to this specific rookie stage instead of another, and he explained that Itsuki promised the newcomer would beat Jin, so he simply took him to the exact stage where Jin had first faced a challenge. Choa frowned and admitted that beating Jin was impossible unless one left being human behind, which made Commander Ninto ask if Choa thought Jin had already done just that. Choa remembered meeting Jin for the first time and thinking she was kind, but her view changed when Jin instantly killed a level 97 beast, and Choa noticed something different in her eyes during that fight. She vividly recalled those chilling, lonely, and godlike eyes that made her feel he wasn't human at all. Commander Ninto explained to Choa that while Itsuki held the same raw power as the godlike Jin, he was nothing but an unpolished gemstone fueled by hatred rather than saving grace. Meanwhile, amidst the fallen wooden beasts on the battlefield, Itsuki declared that his Overmind Missus wouldn't even activate against monsters this size. Just then, a dark figure with glowing red eyes loomed over him, its eyes shining just like his own. Instantly, his body surged forward at blinding speed, slicing through the enemies with a sharp, deadly motion. Itsuji stared calmly at the fallen beast and wondered if that was really the end, but he quickly realized that if level 10 monsters were this weak, this place wouldn't be known as the Rookie Graveyard, meaning there must be something else at play. Just then, a blue box popped up in front of him, warning that his B-rank self-regeneration skill had been detected and was now overheating from overuse. Another window popped up, and the analysis was slowly creeping along at just 5%. Itsuki spun around when a sudden noise made him notice something, and his face changed just a little. A level 10 disaster beast rose up behind him, its whole body twisting upward with glowing green eyes as its long, vine-like limbs burst outward to lunge at him, leaving Itsuki surprised to find that even though he had cut off half its head, it had already healed itself. As the towering monster healed itself, Itsuki narrowed his eyes and guessed things wouldn't be easy. Then a glowing blue window popped up to show that the regenerated Kodama was a level 10 beast with a second-tier gift whose defense was down, but healing power was up. Another blue window popped up and clearly showed the stats. Attack 110, Agility 100, Defense 60, Magic 180, with a total of 450. As the monster's roots and branches whipped around wildly, Itsuki clenched his fist, a system alert flashed, Black Wall activated, and in the next second his hand erupted with black spikes that sliced through the roots. Itsuji leaped at the monster, dodged its hits, figured out that hurting it fast would stop it from healing, and then smashed forward with his armored arm while his red eyes glowed, driving his strikes deep into the wooden beast and raising the progress bar with every shockwave he sent through the ground. Itsuki charged forward with his blade arm glowing blue, leapt high into the air, and crashed down like a spear to slice the monster in two, his attack's bright light washing over the whole battlefield. The giant beast split right down the middle with a bright crack running from its head to its chest, letting its golden eyes shine through the breaking pieces of its huge body. Itsuki watched with sharp red eyes and a grin, promising to tear the creature apart so badly it could never grow back. In the next moment, he threw both arms up and unleashed a blinding slash of light that split the giant monster in half, shattering its wooden shell into glowing fragments that scattered and dissolved into nothingness. As the dust settled, Itsuki lowered his arm and sighed. That should be enough, but before he could rest, the vines twisted back into life, forming wooden monsters with glowing yellow eyes that surged upward from the rubble to attack. The glowing screen in front of Itsuki read 60%, yet the battle raged on as wooden vines lashed out and he danced between them with sharp, smooth steps. He glanced back with an annoyed scowl, muttering that the monster just wouldn't die no matter how hard he tried. As attacks swarmed him from everywhere, he noticed that every time the beast healed, it got faster. His eyes tightened, knowing that the longer this went on, the quicker his plan would be ready. So he chose to stop using Black Wall to save his magic, switch to Thunderbreaker to dodge attacks from afar, and keep doing this until he had the winning answer. But trouble struck because his time was almost up before the 3-minute limit hit, and lightning sparked down his arm as the clock crept towards 75%. Determination froze his face as he unleashed a thunderous attack that kept the monster constantly rebuilding itself, raising his success chance with every risky move, lightning crackling around him as he charged forward while the beast's wooden shell cracked apart and his own life force dwindled with each heavy wooden blow landing. He warned himself that dying now would make all his hard work useless, so he gathered lightning in his arm and struck again. Just as he was about to strike the monster's head, his magic ran out completely. After his body finally gave way, blood trickling from his lips, Itsuki slumped as sharp wooden spikes pierced him, steam rising from his battered wounds while he whispered in defeat that his magic was gone, until a glowing window suddenly appeared beside him, revealing his health had restored to 99%. Seeing that, Itsuki's face hardened and blood trickled down his chin as his eyes turned cold, declaring that Over My Mess needed no magic to win. And with a strange smile, he announced the match was his as the window flashed analysis progress 100%. A bright blue energy surged around him, shattering the wooden spikes while a new system window announced that he had gained a self-healing ability as a massive lotus flower exploded outward, knocking everything in its path aside. A new window popped up, revealing that the Lotus Burst had reached level 2, a powerful ability that spins magic to explode and hurt enemies within 5 meters. Growing stronger the more magic you use, and passively expands its reach by 1% every time it defeats an enemy of level 1 or higher. The lotus bloomed wide, casting a pink light that wrapped around Itsuki as his injuries vanished instantly. Suddenly, a new window popped up revealing that Lotus had leveled up to stage 2, gaining 20 bonus stats, wiping away all curses and healing his wounds completely, which made the beast with glowing yellow eyes take notice before another final window appeared to confirm that the Lotus Burst ability had been triggered. Itsuki joined his hands and gave a sharp clap. A sudden burst of power exploded into a roaring fire that swallowed everything before him, while a blazing wave surged outward and a monster's shadow raced through the thick smoke and flying sparks. After the fire died down, he stood there with blood streaming down his cheek and his hand still out from the move he just made, taking a deep breath to say that the Lotus Burst wasn't half bad. Smoke curled up from the scorched hole at Itsuki's feet, and as he looked at the wreckage, he realized that using only a third of his magic had cleared away weak disaster beasts so easily, yet he never thought he could refill his empty magic well after miss. As he took a step, his eyes landed on a glowing green crystal on the ground, so he froze, stared at it, and quietly wondered what it was. Outside, the receptionist anxiously stared at the bright red screen showing the rookie was still trapped on stage 10 with over 2 minutes left, and she nervously insisted they call the rescue team immediately. Choa adjusted her glasses and spoke calmly, saying she didn't think Itsuki would lose to the level 10 disaster beasts, but clearing the stage in just 3 minutes seemed impossible. Her words died in a heavy silence until a new message flashed on the big screen declaring a new record, freezing everyone in the hall as shocked whispers spread and a woman stared in disbelief before Choa asked aloud how Itsuki possibly did it. The room held its breath in shock as a bright notification declared that Tenma Itsuki had cleared the level 10 stage in just 2 minutes and 14 seconds, leaving everyone stunned by the unbelievable result on the leaderboard where he beat the second-place finisher by a full minute and the third by over 5 minutes. Even as the crowd pointed out his torn clothes, stained with green liquid, and wondered how a level 0 rookie could survive against deadly beasts and earn the guidance of the legendary commander, Izumi Ninto. Commander Ninto beamed with pride, telling everyone that Itsuki had done exactly as he hoped for his student, while Choa watched silently and wondered if her father was finally happy again, as the crowd around them whispered in shock that Itsuki was Iamto's pupil, marveling at how he broke Tawajin's record, but arguing that without a rise in his own level, he had nowhere left to grow. Suddenly, a nervous receptionist stepped forward holding a decorated box, explained it was a gift for breaking the record, and asked Itsuki to take it, while her expression softened as she apologized for earlier rude words. Itsuji stared at the box in shock, wondering if he really got a reward for his reckless move as a level 0 rookie, but admitted it was fine since a stranger like him meant nothing to them until she stepped in to stop him, proving she actually cared. After hearing that, the receptionist turned a deep shade of red, stammered her denial, and blushed even harder when Itsuki just thanked her. Not far away, Choa shouted to Itsuki that she was heading off and told him not to fall behind. She adjusted her glasses in annoyance and told him not to get cocky just because his father was her teacher, while Itsuki quickly agreed to the commander's suggestion to make the current stage harder. He told Itsuki he was ready to tackle the toughest enemies, and as the three of them strolled across the sunset rooftop, Commander Ninto explained that a monster's true power had nothing to do with its level and everything to do with something far more important. He told me that the real difference was whether the monster had a brain. While mindless beasts were easy to handle, those smarter than us were a whole different kind of trouble. Choa explained that awakened beings and disaster beasts are basically the same kind of creature, except humans have jobs, which is why their stats are different. She explained that the toughest monsters, known as disaster beasts, lived in the advanced stages of the world, mostly in North District 4, which she told Itsuki to head to next, and then asked if he had any other questions. After hearing her out, Itsuki suddenly recalled the 2 mindless monsters he'd slain, wondering if their total lack of screams or pain meant they were even empty shells, so he asked Choa if smart beasts actually feel pain. Hearing that, Choa suddenly felt a cold pressure on her back, and as she turned to see the terrifying aura and wonder what Itsuki was thinking, her face went stiff. Behind them, a crowd huddled together whispering about how Mr. Izumi might force Itsuki to face a deadly advanced stage, even though Itsuki had broken a record before, and while some thought that meant he was fine, others warned that advanced stages were a whole different beast, especially in North District 4, where one man controlled everything and had made every person who stepped inside vanish, with rumors saying he killed them, leading someone to immediately guess that this man was Kinoshita. Hey! Another man started mocking King Rei by asking who he was and telling him to act less like royalty, only for his friend to panic and slap his mouth shut, warning him that they would both get killed if that man, the governor's son, heard them. The scene changed to a fancy room where the notorious Kinoshita, Rei lounged with confidence while servants waited around him. A subordinate asked when he would leave, but Kinoshita Rei just smirked and replied that since he controlled every stage in North District 4, he could leave whenever he wanted, skipping the long lines that only regular people had to wait in, before lifting his glass with a satisfied smile. Teru held one of the defeated students by the neck and warned everyone. He said he would not forgive anyone who tried to enter the stage without Rei's permission. If anyone resisted, he would treat them the same way he treated the two lying on the ground. The other students watched nervously as Teru lifted the struggling blonde student off the floor. The blue-haired student remained unconscious beside him. Teru shouted that nobody should think about helping them. The group of bodyguards in suit stood nearby laughing. One of them told Takeru not to go too far because the trash was watching. Another warned that if he kept beating weak students, the teacher would hear about it. Their laughter echoed through the area. Takeru only scoffed. He tossed the blonde student aside with a flick of his arm, showing no concern at all. The injured blonde student collapsed forward, but before he could hit the ground, Itsuki caught him. Blood dripped from a student's nose as his body went limp in Itsuki's hands. Around them, the other students whispered in shock. One of them asked who the newcomer was and wondered why he did not listen when they told him not to interfere. Another panicked voice said that a level 0 person was definitely going to die. Someone else stared at Choa and muttered that the beauty beside him looked familiar. Not far away, Takeru glared at Itsuki. He shouted that nobody was allowed to pass without Rei's permission. He warned that if Itsuki did not want to end up like the unconscious student, he should just go home quietly. Hearing that, Itsuki lowered his head slightly. He calmly said that he understood he would not be able to enter the stage unless he defeated this man. Beside him, Choa raised her hand, saying she would contact the North District 4 administrator because this kind of behavior could not be allowed. But Itsuki stopped her. His eyes glowed bright blue as he said it was not necessary. He repeated what his teacher had told him, that he should do what he believed was right without hesitation. He then turned to Choa again and spoke plainly. He said he would leave the treatment of the injured students to her. Then he turned to Teru. As Itsuki stepped forward, a thought appeared in Teru's mind. As he stared at him, he wondered who this man was. A status window floated beside Itsuki, showing his information. Tenma Itsuki, human level 0, fixed job, order breaker, gift, special grade, skill, undisclosed status, undisclosed. Seeing this, even though Itsuki was level 0, he stood firmly without any fear. Takeru wondered if Itsuki had a rare job that allowed him to stay calm like this. Teru suddenly felt something strange. Even with his higher level, he felt pressured. He told himself that rare job or not, he was 12 levels ahead. The stat difference should not be something Itsuki could bridge. Another window appeared beside Takeru, showing his status. Oga Takeru, human, level 12, job, elementalist, gift, grade 2. After metallization, defense plus 50% in stationary state. Skill, metallization. Status attack 110. Agility 100. Defense 250. Magic 145. Total 605. As Teru watched, his face changed. A bright, lotus-shaped light bloomed open to show a tiny black sphere inside. The glowing orb drifted forward, scattering colors through the air as the silent crowd watched in wonder. Some students stared in confusion, with one boy complaining it was just a tiny ball, while another asked if they were being serious, calling the whole thing disappointing. Teru glared at the orb, laughing at the idea that such a tiny sphere could stop him or cancel his power, calling the attack completely naive. He stepped forward with confidence and asked if that orb was Itsuki's trump card, as it kept drifting closer to him. Takeru sneered at Itsuki, laughing that he was about to die a pathetic death, but his smile vanished instantly as his eyes widened in shock to see the glowing orb sinking into his metal side and splitting it with a crack. A split second later, blood erupted from the wound as Teru screamed in agony, while the clear orb sliced his arm open in one sharp tear. He crashed to the ground, gripping his bleeding arm stump and screaming in panic, while Itsuki calmly walked over to tell Takeru that since he was human, he only aimed for the arm, but would have gone for the neck if Takeru had been a disaster beast. Itsuki then glanced at Takeru's frozen men, commanded them to stop staring and take Taro to the hospital, and asked if they couldn't hear him. With not a single soul moving, he spun around, his eyes hard as ice, and barked that they needed to get lost. Before long, the guards were hauling a blood-soaked Takeru away, leaving one of them shaking while the other wiped sweat from his brow. Far away, the crowd started cheering as Choa smiled proudly while the students around her celebrated, with one shouting that Itsuki had won, another yelling, "Well done," and a third adding it served Teru right, before two students rushed up to Itsuki, one asking if he'd team up with them to finish the mission fast, and the other insisting he join their group so he could gain more experience points. They argued once more, questioning if he dared challenge the flaming rock execution ground with just 3 people, warned that the disaster beasts inside were as tough as Takaru, and added that their healer could restore his magic to let him fire orbs endlessly. Itsuhi stared ahead with a calm smile, convinced that beasts as tough as Takaru were the perfect test, and he promised himself that every victory over them would make the clear orb fly faster, speeding up his run through that stage. The 2 boys leaned forward eagerly, asking Itsuki to tell them which team he picked. Itsuki cast his eyes down and whispered that he would go by himself. Everyone around him froze in shock as one screamed that he was daring to face a level 15 expert alone, while another muttered that he'd gotten too proud just because he beat Takaru. Those 2 students walked away, with one admitting that Itsuki was powerful but warned against arrogance, while the other declared they couldn't reach his standards and insisted they find someone else instead. Choa stepped forward and calmly explained that the monsters here were just like Takaru, and while she knew he could defeat them, she worried his magic might not last long enough. So he smiled back at her with quiet confidence and promised her he'd be just fine. Hearing that, Choa's face instantly turned red, and she sharply replied that she wasn't worried since she only asked because her father would blame her if her father died, so she turned away to treat the injured and let him do whatever he wanted. Before she went, she fixed her glasses and gave him one last warning. The Stone Tribe were mindless but moved in packs, so he had to use his magic very carefully. Itsuki walked up to the glowing door and held out his hand, earning a soft beep and a light that told him the awakened Tenma was finally allowed in. Once inside, Itsuki stared ahead with sharp eyes and muttered that he'd found more enemies than he expected. Standing before him, the rocky canyon was packed with stone beasts made of giant boulders and glowing yellow eyes that charged and cracked the ground beneath them, while Itsuki realized these powerful monsters had grown far stronger with new levels and stats. Suddenly, a blue window popped up before him, revealing that the level 9 stone statue had a special gift, turning all magic power into unbreakable defense. As a stone beast charged at him, Itsuki held up his glowing purple orb and calmly wondered if the enemy met the orb's special rules. As he switched it on, the purple glow around the clear orb exploded outward, filling the air with swirling layers of violet and blue light. As the giant stone monster burst through the dust to charge forward, Itsuki held up his hand and aimed the glowing purple orb swirling above his palm, right at the incoming beast. The orb blasted out of nowhere and ripped right through the beast's hard shell, leaving a gaping hole that let Itsuki walk through the fading purple light as his system window popped up. The screen showed that the stone statue on level 9 had been defeated, and right after, a new line told us that the clear orb's flight speed had jumped by a full 100%. Itsuki glanced at the message, nodded, and realized it was just as he had guessed. More stone monsters howled as they burst from the broken cliff, their yellow eyes glowing with a strange light. With lightning crackling around him and red eyes glowing, Itsuki calmly watched the slow, clumsy beast before declaring them perfect targets for the clear orb. The system windows kept popping up one after another. The stone statue at level 9 fell defeated, and the clear orb's flight speed jumped up by 100%. Pieces of broken stone littered the ground while the air buzzed with notifications. The glowing status window floated above Itsuki, showing that 110 magic points remained out of 260, while he stood atop a mountain of shattered stone beasts and calmly figured out that since the clear orb used 50 points, he only had 2 uses left. As the ground shook beneath 2 giant stone beasts charging right at him, he realized he had to act quickly before the last 3 enemies, including the hidden boss, attacked. He realized he had to knock out 2 foes with just 1 orb, so Itsuki dropped his guard and pulled the swirling purple power from the clear sphere into his hand. With a mighty leap, Itsuki rocketed into the air just as the beast slammed down, exploding like a bomb and sending dust and rocks flying everywhere. Itsuki jumped forward and shouted now, as he rushed straight through the rubble. His eyes burned a bloody red as he charged through the shockwave, a wild grin spreading across his face as he yelled, "Take this," while readying his next move. A purple sphere plummeted so fast it lit up the entire sky, while its shadow hung, suspended in the air above it. Suddenly, glowing windows popped up one after another to show the stone statue at level 9 had been defeated, and the clear orb's flight speed shot up by 100%. After the crash, Itsuki crashed onto the rocky ground, gasping for air as sweat ran down his face, wishing he had a magic recovery skill so he wouldn't feel so drained after his power ran out. He slowly sat up and saw the glowing screen telling him that his clear orb skill, now flying at 5 meters per second and ignoring all defense, let him catch up to running enemies, with its speed boosted to 500% after he'd already taken down tougher foes. Just as he was looking at the details, the ground suddenly shook and a huge stone arm crashed down on him. Itsuki gasped as the huge thing hit the ground hard, throwing dirt and rocks everywhere. A huge stone giant rushed forward, shaking the ground and kicking up dust, while a system window popped up to show it was a B-rank monster named Giant Stoneman, level 15, with a skill that turns magic into defense and stats of attack 239, agility 60, and a massive defense of 478. Itsuki gazed up at the massive beast and gasped in awe as lightning surged around him, instantly boosting his agility by 50%. Blue sparks crackled as he ran toward the giant, wondering if one bright hit would be enough to stop the monster while he ducked under its huge legs. He looked up at the stone giants,